She could sign a life-changing check tomorrow. She keeps saying no, and nobody outside her inner circle knows why. For 2 straight years, one of the richest offers in the history of women's sports has been sitting untouched on Caitlin Clark's table. The people behind that offer have not stopped chasing her, and right now, her own body might be about to make the decision for her. Stick around, because by the end of this video, the real reason she keeps walking away from millions is going to make a lot more sense than you think, and there's a twist near the end involving a record she used to own that got broken without her. Before we get into it, if you want every twist in this story the moment it breaks, tap subscribe and turn on notifications. Now let's get into it. How she got here. To understand why anyone would offer Caitlin Clark millions of dollars just to show up for a few weeks, you have to go back to where this all started. Clark left the University of Iowa as the NCAA Division I all-time leading scorer, men's or women's, finishing her college career with 3,951 points and a pair of Naismith Player of the Year awards. She led Iowa to back-to-back Final Fours. By the time the Indiana Fever selected her first overall in the 2024 WNBA draft, she was already the most famous amateur athlete in the country. Then she went out and somehow exceeded the hype. Her rookie season, she averaged 19.2 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 8.4 assists a game, leading the entire WNBA in assists and three-pointers made. She set the league's single-season assist record with 337, broke the rookie scoring record with 769 points, and became the first rookie in league history to record a triple-double. She did it twice. She was named to the All-WNBA first team as a rookie, something that hadn't happened since 2009. She finished 4th in MVP voting, ahead of players with a decade more experience. She was named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, the first WNBA player ever to receive that honor, and the Associated Press Female Athlete of the Year on top of it. Despite a brutal 1-8 start to the season, she dragged a Fever team to a 20-20 record and their first playoff appearance since 2016. And through all of it, the thing that made her a phenomenon wasn't just the stats. It was what happened around her games. Sellout crowds on the road, merchandise flying off shelves, TV ratings the WNBA had never come close to before. Even after a controversial snub from the 2024 Olympic roster, her popularity somehow kept climbing. By the end of her rookie year, there was really only one question left in women's basketball. How do you get more of Caitlin Clark on the court? That question is exactly what a brand new startup league was about to try to answer. The offer nobody refuses. In January 2025, a 3-on-3 basketball league called Unrivaled tipped off in Miami. It was co-founded by 2 WNBA stars, Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart, and it was built on one simple promise: pay women what they're actually worth. The league gave every one of its first 36 players an equity stake in the company itself, not just a paycheck, and it paid an average salary north of $200,000 for a season that lasts a matter of weeks rather than months. Every game was played in Miami. Every game was built for television, with a broadcast partnership designed to make the games feel like an event, not a side hustle. From the very beginning, Unrivaled wanted one name on its roster more than any other. Reports at the time described the pitch to Caitlin Clark as a Lionel Messi-style deal, a nod to the mega contract that brought the soccer legend to Inter Miami and instantly turned Major League Soccer into appointment viewing. Insiders said the offer to Clark included a 7-figure salary, an equity stake in the league, and a share of future revenue growth. For a startup trying to prove that women's basketball could be a real profitable business rather than a charity case, landing the most famous player in the sport would have been the ultimate stamp of legitimacy, the same way Messi validated MLS almost overnight. There was just one problem. Caitlin Clark never signed. The first no. When Unrivaled's inaugural season kicked off in January 2025, Clark was nowhere on the roster. She had just wrapped a grueling rookie year with the Fever, a season that shattered attendance records and turned her into the most talked-about athlete in America, not just in women's sports. Rather than jump straight into another competitive season back-to-back with zero real off-season, She chose to rest. Multiple reports confirmed at the time that Clark had informed the league directly that she would not be playing, even as Unrivaled kept the door wide open and kept building around the players who did say yes. And build it did. Without the WNBA's biggest star, Unrivaled still put together a roster loaded with recognizable names, turned heads with its production value and broadcast deal, and proved that players were more than willing to bet on a league that was willing to pay them like stars instead of afterthoughts. The absence of Caitlin Clark didn't sink the league in its first year. If anything, it gave Unrivaled a chip on its shoulder heading into year 2 and a very specific target for its recruiting pitch. Now here's where you need to pay attention, because this is the part almost nobody connects. The record she used to own before Unrivaled existed. The record for the most attended regular season professional women's basketball game in the United States belonged to Caitlin Clark herself. On September 19, 2024, in the final game of her rookie season, the Fever and the Washington Mystics drew 20,711 fans into Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. The Mystics won a one-point thriller, 92-91, and Clark closed out her rookie year with 8 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds in front of that record crowd. That record stood for over a year. Then, on January 30th, 2026, Unrivaled ran a sold-out doubleheader at the Xfinity Mobile Arena in Philadelphia in front of 21,490 fans, officially breaking the mark Clark had set without her ever playing a single competitive minute for the league. In the opening game, the Phantom BC beat the Breeze BC 71-68. In the nightcap, Marina Mabrey dropped a game-high 47 points as the Lunar Owls beat the Rose 85-75. Paige Buchers and Cameron Brink represented the Breeze, Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Plum played for the Phantom, and Chelsea Gray and Kalia Copper suited up for the Rose. Even Kate Martin, Clark's old Iowa teammate, was on the floor for the Breeze. So think about that for a second. The league that spent 2 straight off-seasons trying to sign Caitlin Clark just broke Caitlin Clark's own attendance record with a roster that did not include her. That's not a small footnote. That's a startup proving it doesn't strictly need her to succeed, which changes the entire negotiating dynamic going forward. And it makes what happened next even more interesting. The second no, heading into Unrivaled's second season, the pursuit of Clark only intensified. The league had 48 confirmed players for its 2026 slate, an even deeper and more star-studded field than year 1. And this time, the circumstances looked different, because Clark's 2025 WNBA season had been an absolute nightmare of injuries. She was limited to just 13 games, battling a groin issue and then an ankle issue on top of it, before the Fever officially shut her down for the year on September 4th. Indiana still made an inspiring run to the WNBA semifinals without her, but with her season already over months early, the door seemed wide open for Clark to use Unrivaled's short winter schedule as a low-stakes way to get back into game shape before 2026. She still said no. For the second consecutive year, Caitlin Clark chose not to play in Unrivaled, even as several of her own Fever teammates signed on, including Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Ari McDonald, and Michaela Timpson. Kelsey Mitchell, who led the Fever in scoring in 2025, joined the Hive alongside Sonia Citrone, Ezzy Magbegor, Natisha Hedeman, Sanya Rivers, and Mo Billings. When asked directly about her own decision, Clark pointed to 2 things: her ongoing recovery and USA basketball obligations on the horizon tied to World Cup qualification. Her exact words were that national team commitments were, quote, probably her top priority right now. So think about what just happened. A league willing to hand her equity, a 7-figure payday, and a share of future revenue got turned down twice in a row by a player who was sitting out anyway. Twice. Not because the money wasn't real. Not because the platform wasn't real. Because something else kept winning out. Over and over. That something else is the part of this story that actually explains everything, so let's get into it. What she chose instead. Remember, Clark's stated reason for skipping Unrivaled's second season was USA basketball. That wasn't just a vague excuse to avoid the topic. In the FIBA World Cup qualifying tournament in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Clark suited up for Team USA and looked like herself again for the first time since her injury-wrecked 2025 season. She led the team to a perfect 5-0 record, averaged a tournament-high 6.4 assists per game, added 11.6 points on nearly 53% shooting, and walked away with tournament MVP honors. For a player who had just spent months on the sideline, that stretch was proof, both to her and to everyone watching, that her body could still hold up on the biggest stages. So while Unrivaled was offering equity and a 7-figure winter payday, Clark chose international duty and rehab instead. A decision that paid off in the form of an MVP trophy and a healthy-looking Caitlin Clark heading into the 2026 WNBA season. It's a real, concrete example of exactly the kind of trade-off she keeps making over and over. Short-term league money on one side, her long-term health, and her list of basketball priorities on the other. And so far, the second option keeps winning. The pay gap that started this whole story. Here's the number that makes all of this make sense. Throughout her rookie season and into 2025, Caitlin Clark's salary from the Indiana Fever was stuck at roughly $78,000 a year on the 4-year rookie deal she signed back in 2024. $78,000 for arguably the most economically important athlete women's basketball has ever produced, a player whose presence alone was moving attendance and television numbers league-wide. Compare that to Unrivaled's average Season 1 salary of over $200,000 for a season that lasts a few weeks instead of 5 months, plus actual equity in the company itself, and you start to understand exactly why a rival league kept knocking on her door with bigger and bigger numbers every single offseason. But here's the part of the story that actually changed everything, and it happened right in the middle of this back and forth. On March 20th, 2026, after more than a year of tense negotiations, the WNBA and its players' union agreed to a brand new 7-year collective bargaining agreement, and it rewrote the league's entire economics overnight. The salary cap jumped from $1.5 million a team to $7 million. The average player salary jumped from roughly $100,000 to a projected $583,000. Minimum salaries, which had been sitting around $66,000, jumped to a range of $270,000 to $300,000. And for the first time in league history, top players became eligible for genuine multi-million-dollar supermax contracts, starting at $1.4 million and projected to climb past $2 million by the end of the decade. Buried inside that deal was a provision called EPIC, short for Exceptional Performance on Initial Contract, built specifically to fast-track raises for young stars who were still stuck on cheap rookie deals while producing star-level results. Caitlin Clark was the league's poster child for exactly that problem, and the new clause used her as its go-to example. Because she had already made the All-WNBA first team as a rookie, her 2026 salary jumped from that $78,000 figure to $528,846, an increase of more than 500% in a single offseason. She's projected to hit roughly $1.3 million in 2027 and become eligible for a supermax deal worth around $1.7 million in 2028. So here's the twist a lot of people miss when they talk about Clark and money. The WNBA actually did move, and it moved fast, right in the same window that Unrivaled was making its second run at her. But even with that historic raise, it's still not hard to see why a rival league could tempt her, because her real financial life was never about the WNBA paycheck to begin with. According to a Sportico report, Clark pulled in roughly $16 million in endorsements in a single year, built on an 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike and a stacked portfolio of other partners she signed since her Iowa days. That endorsement income alone made her the 6th highest-earning female athlete on the planet, even while her official team salary was a fraction of what teammates like Kelsey Mitchell, now on a 1-year, $1.4 million supermax, were making, which means every time Unrivaled sweetens the pot with more equity or a bigger revenue share, they were never really competing with Clark's bank account. They were competing with her calendar, her health, and her list of priorities. And so far, her calendar and her health keep winning that fight. That brings us to right now this season, because the health part of that equation has gotten very real. The injury that won't let go. In the middle of the 2026 WNBA season, Clark has been dealing with a lingering back injury that has forced Indiana to manage her workload with extreme caution. She missed a stretch of games in early July, including a game against the Las Vegas Aces, and after re-aggravating the issue against the Phoenix Mercury in late June, she was placed on a strict minutes restriction by head coach Stephanie White. In one outing against the Golden State Valkyries, she played just 26 minutes and shot 4 for 14 from the field, a shell of her usual efficiency, purely because the team wouldn't let her push past a safe workload. And yet somehow, through all of that, she is putting up the best per-game numbers of her career: 19.7 points, 7.7 assists, and 4.1 rebounds a game across 20 appearances. Stephanie White has kept her on a tight leash all season, unwilling to risk a bigger setback with a genuine playoff push on the line for Indiana. Clark herself has stayed measured about it in every interview, telling reporters she just wants to keep, quote, putting days together, games together consistently, rather than rushing anything and losing more time later. Read between the lines and the picture is obvious. This is a body that has been asked to carry an entire league's business model on top of its own athletic demands. For a franchise trying to protect a generational asset inside a system that still hasn't figured out how to pay her anywhere close to what she actually generates in revenue, sponsorships, and attention. Every game she plays through pain is, in a very real sense, subsidizing a business that pays her a fraction of what a startup 3-on-3 league offered her just to show up for a few weeks in the winter. So now put yourself in her position for a second. You're the engine driving record TV numbers and sold-out road arenas for a base salary that wouldn't cover a single year of a mid-level corporate job in most industries. A rival league is offering you 7 figures, equity, and a shorter, gentler schedule. And your own body is starting to send warning signs that the current workload might not be sustainable forever. What would you actually do? The comparison everyone makes. You can't tell this story without mentioning the player fans compare Clark to more than anyone else: Angel Reese. Reese was traded from the Chicago Sky to the Atlanta Dream, and under the new CBA, her salary jumped as well, from $75,000 to $350,000. That's still well below Clark's $528,000, but it's the same story playing out across the league. A generation of young stars who spent their first couple of seasons earning less than a corporate entry-level salary are suddenly looking at real life-changing WNBA money for the first time. It raises an obvious question for everyone watching this Unrivaled saga. If the WNBA can close this gap for Reese and for Clark, does a rival startup league still have the same leverage it had 2 years ago? Or was Unrivaled's entire pitch built on a pay gap that's now shrinking every single offseason? Keep that question in mind, because it's exactly the kind of thing that could decide whether Clark ever signs. The bigger picture behind the raise. It's worth asking why the WNBA suddenly found $7 million a team to hand out in salary after decades of paying its stars next to nothing. The honest answer is that the league's business genuinely exploded, and a huge chunk of that explosion traces directly back to the season Caitlin Clark walked into the league. The 2025 season set records for the most-watched regular season, the most-watched postseason, the most-watched opening weekend, and the most-watched three-point contest in league history. Games on ESPN's networks averaged 1.3 million viewers across the regular season, a 6% jump year over year, at a time when most television is losing audience, not gaining it. That growth is also why the league is expanding instead of standing still. The Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo both joined as new franchises for the 2026 season, and 3 more expansion teams in Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia are set to join by 2030. More teams, more media inventory, more national broadcast windows, all of it stacking on top of the audience Clark helped build in the first place. In a very real sense, The new CBA and the raise that came with it are a direct receipt for what the Clark effect actually did to this league's bottom line. And it's exactly why every time Unrivaled makes another run at her, the counter-argument for staying keeps getting stronger too, because the league she'd be walking away from is finally starting to pay like the business she helped create. The question nobody can answer. So where does that leave Unrivaled going forward? The league has already proven it can sell out arenas and break attendance records without Caitlin Clark's name on a single jersey. It has already shown players it will hand out real equity and six-figure checks for a few weeks of work, a structure the WNBA has yet to match anywhere close. And it has now been turned down twice by the one player who could turn Unrivaled into a genuine cultural moment on the level of Messi joining Major League Soccer. The exact comparison the league's own recruiting pitch was built around. Nothing has been ruled out for the future. Clark hasn't slammed the door on Unrivaled. She has simply chosen, twice in a row, to prioritize her recovery and her national team commitments over a winter payday. But every extra week she spends this season managing a back injury while playing on a restricted schedule is another data point in an argument that's been building for 2 full years now, that the current system isn't giving its single biggest star enough reason to stay loyal to it for the long haul, and that a rival league with deeper pockets and a shorter commitment is patiently waiting for the moment that math finally flips. Will a third offer from Unrivaled finally be the one she can't turn down? Or has she already made her decision for good? And this is simply a storyline that keeps getting recycled every winter because it's good for headlines? Nobody outside her camp actually knows yet, and that uncertainty is exactly why this isn't over. Drop your prediction in the comments. Tell me whether you think she ever suits up for Unrivaled, and if you want to be the first to know the second there's an update on this, make sure you're subscribed because this is one storyline we are going to keep following all the way to its answer.